My name's Pira Draculea, and we are working on pages from my graphic novel Ricky B Goes to Sea. When last we saw Ricky, he had gone with his submarine plans to his cousin Darren's shop. Darren builds hot rods, and his business is Darren's Custom Cars. And Ricky was hoping to get Darren to build him a submarine. So we're about to see Darren's reaction to that request. But first, part of the B story of this book is intrusive ads as we get on social media and websites and whatnot. So we have another intrusive ad. And look, it's for Darren's Custom Cars. Apparently, the ad server understands that Ricky is at Darren's Custom Cars. Although, if you're already out of business, do you really need an ad for it? Anyways, we are going to work on this, and this is a 2-page spread. So I'm going to be kind of cautious with how I draw this because probably it'll be a little bit squashed like this when you look at trim and whatnot, because that's going to be in the gutter of the book. Two, it's going to be a little truncated in there, which is why I kept the text away. But anyways, let's get right to it, and we'll be starting on the left side. So I think, well, hot chicks are kind of part of the whole hot rod car culture. And clearly, Darren is taking advantage of that here and kind of advertising that if you get Darren to either build you a custom car or chop up your car and make it all cool and stuff, that you too will apparently have bimbos draping themselves over your car. Of course, if you've been to a car club's show and shine, you'll know that, I mean, there's a good chance the bimbos in question might be in their 60s or 70s, but they'll be there with their husbands. But, I guess it's the fantasy, right? And so we are going to go around and we'll just do the whole thing. Like they really only there's a few lines that really need to line up, and even then, because it's going to be in the gutter of the book in the middle, it's not realistically going to line up exactly right anyways. So we're going to just proceed ahead one bit at a time. So, uh, I freaking knew that was going to happen. It's okay. One of the things that uh, it's okay, because what we have to do with this before it becomes a graphic novel anyways is to scan everything in Photoshop. So we just use the corner of a paper towel to suck that up. Simple as that. And then, when this gets scanned, then I will kind of take the little eraser tool and clean up that letter. Not a big deal. I freak out a little bit more when it happens onto like a character's face or something like that. I will put a little mark there that we need to remember to look at that. But that's kind of part of the fun of working with a dip pen, especially if you're working with a dip pen and talking at the same time. Now I have my ink in a shot glass over here, so I dip and I kind of drag it along to try and get most of the excess out, but sometimes we miss some. But one of the things I like about liquid ink and dip pens is that unpredictability. Yeah, sometimes it falls in places didn't actually want unpredictability, but today that was a fine spot for it to fall. We will just play with it. Hi, Habs Productions. Yeah, I heard Montreal lost the series. That's unfortunate. Uh, well, I know even years ago, friends of mine who follow hockey a lot more closely than I do had whole rants about Gary Bettman and whatnot, and kind of ideas that it was that sort of thing was done deliberately to keep American teams winning in order to get boosted, TV views. I don't know how true any of that was, but, it seemed to make, certainly my friends who are Canucks, fans. I kinda guessed, it might be you, with just having changed the name a little bit, yeah. Um, but yeah, certainly I know, friends of mine who are Canucks fans, were very insistent that the NHL was, like, purposefully trying to make American teams win the cup in order to get more viewers or something like that, but I don't even think American viewers, if they like hockey, most of them aren't, they're not worried about a Canadian team winning because it'd just be, who has the best players or whatever, but it was, a fun idea, I guess some people like to, go with, and I don't know, like, I don't follow hockey enough to know if it's true, maybe it is, but, sometimes there's other, simpler solutions or whatever. Uh, it's I did hear though that with the Habs, I think the channel I was watching actually was like Urinating Tree, and I know they're kind of like obnoxious in how they do their coverage, but they're funny. But the guy did make a comment that because of recent draft picks and whatnot, that the Habs should have a really strong team, developing over the next few years. So that would be kind of cool to see, after a year or two of young players developing the experience. If the Habs get, when the Habs get into the finals or the playoffs again, then, seeing them go further next time after this team's had a little time to mature. So, so here we have the slogan is "Every chick loves a custom." And by the looks of it, Darren did his own spell checking on this ad. And like his cousin Ricky, spelling, probably something he should have farmed out. Some might say advertising, also something he should have farmed out. But Darren did show some restraint. The girls are wearing bikini bottoms, so it's not a full-on car pinup. It's actually the second time today I have been doing hand lettering with outlining and filling in letters in black. The other is very, very different, though. I'm on the hospitality and events committee for my church. And we have a photo booth event this weekend in a photo booth. So I printed out the sign, but the lettering was too big. So then to have it all looking nice on one piece of paper, I like taped my printouts together and then used my light box and a really big piece of drawing paper and acrylic markers to trace and fill it out. I guess you could say I have range. It's kind of like, well, I think it was this last year for 2025 with the Spotify Wrapped. Um, I had like the top band was Motley Crue. The top song think was Doctor Feelgood, but the top album was Sir Simon Rattle recording the Nutcracker Suite with um, I forget which orchestra it was, probably Berlin Philharmonic. Showing to that to friends of mine, and they're going like, "What the hell?" I'm like, "What? I happen to like, the Nutcracker Suite, and sometimes I would, I mean, I listen to it a lot, but, usually when I listen to it, actually, I have, like, a particular version bookmarked that's on YouTube, but I listen to Spotify in my car, and I guess I listen to the Simon Rattle version just often enough when driving home from Victoria to build up enough, plays of the songs that brought it made it my number 1 album, despite the song and the band being Motley Crue. You just know that at some point, like, I think they're already working on a Motley Crue Broadway musical or something. I heard some crazy rumor about that, that it's gonna be built on the dirt. I don't know if they were gonna do, like, new songs, like Broadway style songs, like, that would actually be hilarious if they did, or if it was just gonna be that they were gonna sing Motley Crue songs and then they were gonna be have some, like, biopic type dialogue in between to weave the thing into a story based on the dirt, but I don't know. I think it would be kind of hilarious to see, some, like, nerdy musical theater kid, putting on a black wig and singing an ode to hockey and underage bimbos when portraying Nikki Sixx. Although I think Nikki is involved in the creative decisions and obviously the licensing, so they probably couldn't really do a funny parody version of that, anytime soon, you know? Maybe in 100 years when everybody's dead and the copyrights have run out. I'm gonna make this bimbo a brunette, and then the other one will be blonde. You know, that way it shows that, Darren doesn't discriminate. The real question would be, is either one of these girls Lorelai, who is Darren's, live-in girlfriend and baby mama? So I'll have to actually there is a, section in about, I guess yes, it's in about 20 pages, 15, 20 pages. There is a, Radariff family barbecue or family picnic barbecue, backyard barbecue kind of event, which is like the birthday party of Ricky's uncle. And, Ricky corners, Darren and asks for feedback again. Uh, so perhaps I'll have to have another look at that in the background and decide if I want to make one of the women in the background look like one of these bimbos, but you know, fully clothed because grandma's around and whatnot. Yeah, let's give her some earrings. Now, so her back goes like that. I guess I gotta draw her tail first. What will probably be the clearest diagram in the entire comic franchise as to how their tails uh, attach. Although, I think there might be actually a shot, a kind of a plumber's butt shot of Ricky somewhere later in this book, but well, she is going to be. She does actually have a bikini top on, so that ink drop I saw before, just in time before it splatted on her hand. So, just thinking, I had drawn where there was going to be an exhaust pipe on off of this hot rod, but I think it's not going to make visual sense. So I think I'm going to go with what was in the original reference photo, which is the exhaust pipe angled out and came out in front of the car wheel. Um, this thing sort of has a roll cage. Do I want to leave it with the roll cage? You know what? I'm just going to ignore the roll cage, but we'll have the seats. And that just makes it a little less confusing. Before I didn't draw the girl first, I drew the car first, and then it's kind of she's going to be blocking some of the stuff that would make some of that stuff make sense. Uh, the reference photo on this, like, it's not exactly accurate. But it was from a local show and shine. Like, there's one that happens every year at a park not far from my house. And then there's another one that actually is going to be this weekend at the local A&W. Um, so I always like going to those, even though admittedly, I know absolutely nothing about cars. Yeah, I know how to pump my own gas, and that's about it. But I always like going and checking out the cars, especially like hot rods and rat rods in particular. I know absolutely nothing about like the care and maintenance of such things, but I always like taking reference photos. And then every year I have something like this where I'm drawing from those reference photos, and I realize, you know what? I didn't really get a good angle on such and such. So then every time one of those show and shines happens, I go and I take like 300 photos, and then, you know, inevitably, none of them are exactly what I need for future drawing projects, which is kind of, I guess, to be expected, like, if you don't already know what you need, it's hard to anticipate. I think this reference photo is actually from 2023. It's like the the seats are not accurate, because the seats on this, it was, like, super low, so they'd be kind of almost at your not at your waist, but, like, at your shoulder blade level, and then I wanted it to have higher, seats, um, so I, ignored what the reference photo actually showed. Kinda just show this as, like, a flame outline, but something like that. You could prove that line wrong, but that's okay, we can hide it. So we did get a go of ink dropping there, but that's okay. That works. I think the other problem I had with my reference photos is some of the stuff I really like are like the 70s muscle cars. I'm not gonna pretend like I know much about them, but I just love the like, "Oh, that's a cool car. I don't know what kind it is, but it's cool." You know? Well, I do think Dodge Challengers for sure are one of the cars I always like. And I also like the '50s ones that have the huge, fins and whatnot. But, I definitely like hot rods and, like rat rods. But the rat rods, when you're looking at reference, in some ways they're a little too specific, like, especially for something like this. Um, and then the muscle cars, did a lot of looking at those, but I was like, a lot of those, the point is that they're a stock muscle car, right? So if Darren is selling the fact that he does customs, well, they're not custom, right? So, although the engines might be redone and stuff like that, but then that doesn't really show in the photos, right? So, anyways, I'd found this one that looked like a cut down of, I'd have to look and see if I had taken any. Sometimes I took photos of, like, if they had little signs explaining what kind of car it was, what year and whatnot, but other years, I just took photos of the cars. So, anyways, anything else I would try and say about that, I would sound like an idiot. Where it's like, "She does not know anything about cars." Correct, I don't. So, but it definitely looked like it had been chopped down and whatnot. Very interesting vehicle. I think I'm gonna let that nib soak for a bit, and we're gonna use a fatter nib to do some filling in. And aside from looking at the actual work every so often, I'm looking up at my YouTube, not only to see about who's in the chat or whatnot, but, you know, seeing what it looks like on camera sometimes gives a very different, impression. There may be some things that I will end up, putting in with Photoshop, like maybe some white stitching lines or, the lines between the padding, rolls, and that sort of stuff, or I may just leave them. Was reading something earlier this week that was like a book that's advice for writers, and they were talking about, like, the value of the Pareto principle, and that, sometimes you spend time trying to get from, like, 80% to 100%, and that actually doesn't pay off. Now, that's if you're doing, like, fast fiction or you're trying to get, like, 6 Kindle novels out per year, that makes more sense than perhaps, some of this kinda stuff, but, there's also something to be said even in graphic novels of kinda going like, "You know what? Get it as good as you can and then put it out and work on the next book." Okay, the hood comes down quite a bit, so I'm not gonna keep working in that area because I need to kind of finish off over here. Let's see, now I need the other pin back because that one's going to be too wide and kind of mess with the detailing. So now she's that skinny. She's going to have those kind of dips that you have on the spine that kind of go like that. Um, and now for these gigantic wheels. Hi, Megs. And thank you. Glad you're enjoying the drawing. This is for a graphic novel project, and this is actually supposed to be an intrusive ad interrupting the graphic novel main story, which is kind of the B story of the graphic novel. So, although it happens that this ad is for the business that belongs to the cousin of the main character, but uh, we should be meeting Darren and the main character a little later this evening. Usually I get through 3 drawings a night, so or 3 drawings per stream. Realize that's tire tracks are all supposed to go this way, so I misplaced my line a little bit, but that's okay. The tire tread, I think, is another area where probably after I scan these through and have, do any tweaking in Photoshop, I may use like an eraser to kind of put some faint lines indicating the treads. If memory serves, the wheel that's on the car in the reference photo is one that kind of had, I wouldn't go so far as to say they were racing slicks, like they didn't look like there definitely was a tread on the tires, but it looked like a pretty flat kind of tread. Um, so we're not going to worry too much. It's not like it's a huge truck where you really need to get those really nubby kind of wheels and have them look right. And let's be blunt, in an ad like this, I don't think anyone's looking at the tire tread. In fact, Darren may find nobody is reading the Darren's custom cars. in order for him to even get business from this ad. Not that that's the point of the graphic novel, of course. The idea is that there's these intrusive ads, and whatever Ricky, the narrator, is telling us about that's happening in the course of the graphic novel, the intrusive ads then relate to. So he's visiting his cousin Darren, and therefore we have ads for Darren. Just trying to remember what the wheel. It's not hubcaps, but what the wheel lugs and whatnot look like on this one. I don't think it was that obvious. I think it was one where it kind of almost like went into a tunnel because the wheel was so fat and wide. Oh, anywho, so we got this, and then I noticed there's certain of the cars where this edge would be kind of covered in leather and it would look almost like it had buttons on it. So maybe we want to do a slightly different texture here. Not that the speckling is going to make it really look like leather, but it's going to read differently, you know. And I kind of did the underdrawing as a fairly quick sketch looking at the reference photo um, on my iMac. So could definitely get way more detail if I had like printed it out, traced it, and done it that way. I did mention that I do have a light box, but anyways, we're not going to worry about that. So we need this one. I don't even know if the reference car even had doors because that was so low that you could probably just like swing your leg over and hop into it. Um, and the car itself is very low to the ground as well. What I'm gonna do at the end, I think, is after I've drawn the whole car, some areas like this that are black, I'm gonna come back a with a brush and kind of make it so that it looks more shiny, so the blacks are really solid blacks. But we'll deal with that afterwards. Kind of like what accidentally happened right there, but you know, it works because it kind of gives the sense of some areas of the car in shadow and some are super, super shiny. So there was a little step sort of thing coming out here. They're called a running board. I don't know. This is where I sound like an idiot because I just know if a car is pretty or not, not what things are actually called. Um, we've got the exhaust pipe. That much I'm certain of what it's called. Come out here, and then it was going like that. think I'll also put shadows on the ground with the brush afterwards, um, or with a fatter nib. So, also has a little bit of lettering here. All right. So now we are moving on to the next page. Just gonna move this out of the way because, you know, a shot glass full of black ink is you got to be very careful with. So that's how it's kind of shaping up on the joint. Just gonna move. I've got some bowls that I have off to the side with water that I stick my pens in when I'm not using them. Just want to be very cautious about how I set that up so I don't knock anything over. Not going to do all the drawing together, but I just want to connect the lines and kind of have a sense. Of course, this is a full page bleed spread, so the drawing goes right into the gutter of the book. Whereas most of the pages for Ricky, um, you'll see when I get to page 3, there's I just use thick black lines to separate out the panels of the comic, and then the each page has like a half-inch thick black border around it. Um, so generally speaking, the pages don't actually come together in the middle. But there's certain pages throughout the book where they do, and then we gotta be a little more detail oriented. So, let me see here. It looks like there's a bit of a bend here. It's because there is going to be a little bit trimmed off. So you kind of want to have it when it goes together, it goes kind of like that naturally. I should probably then put it that way. It looks a little bit strange when you have it right out, but yeah. This is also a spot where we're going to have that kind of where there's some leather that's got these tacks or whatever. Not grommets, but that's not the right word, but they almost look like snaps, like clothing that has snaps instead of buttons, but really big. So kind of do that as well around to make it match the other side. And this windscreen was just like straight up in the air and very squared off. So, anyways, just gonna kind of give the indication of the curve so that that kind of, when I fill that in and I'm not actually holding the pages together, we get that right. And then that goes there, and there, and there. Now, kind of have these huge pipes going in. The joint was actually a little bit different than I'm drawing it in, but I'm trying to just make my life simple when I am not mechanically inclined. So whenever I'm looking at this, I'm reminded of for anyone who's familiar with Lennon comics on, I guess he's on Instagram too, but I follow him on Facebook. He does like a lot of rock and roll themed comics, but he had one that wasn't rock where it's this guy goes to the mechanic and the hood is lifted up and there's like a miniature like hamster wheel and like all sorts of random weird gizmo type stuff that's drawn in. And the mechanic explains to the owner of the car, is like, well, there's your problem. The cartoonist has no idea what the engine of a car looks like. Always reminded of that when I'm doing things like this. It's like, yeah. I mean, I know kind of what it looks like when you lift it up. There's like wires and random stuff, right? Anyways, we're gonna set that page aside because now we've got enough out of it that we can just continue on with drawing this side and the other bimbo. Uh, so first we're gonna do our lettering. And as we get close to the first, being an hour into the show, right now we're just 45 minutes in, but a little bit of housekeeping while I'm coloring in letters. So what I do with the streams is initially it'll kind of get hidden. as being saved as private because YouTube likes to take up to 24 hours to process up to high quality. So I let the video stay private while that's going on. And then sometime tomorrow afternoon, I will, once it's done processing, then I will make it public again. And this is going to be part of the Ricky B Goes to Sea playlist and the Ricky B the Rock and Roll Rat playlist and the Live Drawing with Pura playlist. So, you know, there's lots of other videos on those playlists if you want to check them out. And I actually, this weekend, I just because, so this is Bristol board I'm drawing on. I have those portfolio books that I'm keeping this book in while I'm working on it. And the Bristol boards take up 3 of those books. I just finished the first one. So I did a video where I flipped through the first book and talked about the project and the story. So that video is, on this channel somewhere. I don't know. It might be linked in the description below. If not, but do feel free to go have a look at that. And I talk about the whole premise of the book and some of the inspirations. For example, the book is influenced very heavily, and kind of the thing that set it all off with Ricky trying to build a submarine was the whole Ocean Gate fiasco from 2023. So I talk about that, and then yeah, just sort of show through, and I also talk about, inspiration like intrusive ads that we have everywhere, and social media companies and phone companies insist they don't eavesdrop on the conversation, but then you get ads about what's going on in your life, or excuse me, sorry. Sometimes when I get talking too much, I get coughing, especially the last couple days. It better not be the start of any sort of summer cold or whatnot. I don't need any of those. But anyways, so I talked in that video. You can see a flip through of all the previous pages so far, and well, up to a couple pages before this one. And yeah, I talk about the idea. What I'm going to be doing with this book is it's going to be about 100 and some odd pages, 110, I think, overall. Um, so we're going to go up to about page 75 on stream, and then I'm going to finish it off camera. So, so I'm not giving away the end of the book and all that on the show. But when that gets, we're doing like this is going to be page 41 of the book. So, you know, in theory, another 35 pages I'll do on stream. And, uh, anyways, then after that, the Friday streams will be working on the next Ricky B, the Rock and Roll Rat graphic novel, which I have written. I just haven't, done any page setup or whatnot. And I guess at the rate I often work at is about 2, sometimes 3 pages per stream. The way things are going right now, I think it's going to be a 3-page night. Might even be a 4-page night. Yeah, that's probably pushing it too much, but definitely a 3-page night. Um, so it probably means we've got about 3 more months that we're working on this project on the Friday night streams. And then I will finish up the book. I'm not sure exactly when it's going to be ready. Um, I mean, I'd love to have this book out for Christmas. I don't know how realistic that is. Um, it's funny. This is going to be a year where I have a bunch of comic projects suddenly getting finished that have been languishing. I started this in, well, like I said, 2023. and we will definitely get it finished this year. Um, Actually, what I got to start doing pretty soon, actually, is working ahead from the end of the book backwards, so that when it comes time to when I finish the last page that's going to actually be done on stream, that we're kind of reasonably close to being finished the whole book at that point. Let's give a sense of her hand there. Um, because even when I finish all the art, it's probably still going to be, you know, 3 or 4 months before the book would be available. What I'm going to be doing um, is Amazon print on demand with it. So I think I'm going to fill in her bikini is black. Otherwise, it's a little too line worky. Um, but anyway, so there's kind of a process and a back and forth and stuff with that, aside from just the matter of, scanning all these pages, fixing any boo-boos I made in inking in Photoshop, and the book design and all that sort of stuff, right? So, you know, but I hope to have this available this year. Also on Wednesdays, I'm finishing up bonus cartoons for a Selma the Destroyer omnibus. Selma the Destroyer was actually my very first webcomic that I started in 2006 and did until 2009. And then later I did a podcast based on Samo, but those will be later books. So, anyways, I'm getting ready to do let's give this chick some roots. um, Getting ready to do a Zalmo omnibus of the web comic, and also a treasury collection book of the first few months of a more recent webcomic project called Noah's Archipelago, and I'm working on a coloring book. Anyways, it's a whole bunch of stuff that we do on this channel. Kind of give a sense that those are hello. When I say those, I mean these metal horn things. I don't know. I would assume those have more than just air in them. Gonna have silicon or saline in them. But anyways. So there, there. Guess I can go ahead and draw her tail in. Well, so her tail would be coming out like that, and like that, and also I forgot she's a rat, so everybody in this book is a rat. Fix Whisker. So I'm gonna soak that pen for a little bit because it's starting to get a little cloggy. We're gonna use the other one to shade in the hood of the car. I guess technically this car doesn't have a hood, but the whatever this part is. Excuse me. I gotta draw in those other bits before I know what I can black out around. Starting to wish I had put the reference photo on my laptop to look at. Because I did not, so I'm kind of flying blind here at this point. That might make it funnier, I guess. Yeah, I tend to leave these drawings on my desk overnight to dry out flat. And on Saturday mornings, my dad tends to come over to the house, and then we end up going for coffee. And he is very mechanical. So I just know he's going to look at this going, those are the exhaust pipes. What the hell is this other crap? I'm like, I don't know. I like, vaguely looked at a photo I took 3 years ago at the show and shine, and I have no idea what the hell I'm looking at. So, and then I will hear all about how what I drew has no bearing on reality. I'd be like, yes, well, that's kind of the point. Neither do talking rats. Actually, he'll probably look at it, determine what kind of car it's supposed to be based on the body, and then complain about the fact that this is clearly not the original running board. It's kind of what he does at the car show. He's like, "Well, there was that, but that's not the original running gear." I'm like, "Oh, I don't think it's supposed to be." So we are now on to the front end. Let's see here. I just had the vision of like a hood ornament that's designed like like a hand giving the middle finger. So that's, that's what this one is. I've seen all sorts of interesting takes on hood ornaments at the show and shines. And then this one has a grill, even though, like, I mean, the thing is clearly completely open to the air. But you know, anyways, something about her just looks like Lonnie Anderson to me. So I'm like drawing this, and I've got like the WKRP in Cincinnati theme song dancing around in my brain. When you've got an oval or a circle, it's really hard to put a drop shadow on them and make it look exactly right, but we'll kind of leave it at that. Now we need to draw on. We've got these headlights. I think this was actually black. It doesn't matter anyways. It's gonna be black now. I think there was some like random looping of pipes and whatnot, but I'm just gonna ignore that because, at this point I don't remember what it's supposed to be. So I think what had decided to do, I think the actual car cuts off there, but I decided I was going to add almost like a racing cone to the front. You can tell I'm not really, I'm a little off of where I put the lettering in the underdrawing. And that's fine because it's a non-photo blue pencil. So this will get scanned um, in black and white, and the non-photo blue pencil um, will vanish. So not too worried about going outside the line, so to speak. And there is Darren letting future customers know. Don't call him asking when the car is going to be ready. Be ready when it's effing ready. All right, let's break out the brush and fatten up some of those blacks, eh? So that's uh, the overall. At the end, I mean, it's a little awkward here because this is, yeah, it's a two-page spread, so it's a little awkward to show everything in one shot, but we will do our best towards the end. right. I think we're gonna call that spread done. I did not add shadows underneath, but I kind of like the way it looks without them. So, just and I just made a big smudge across the bottom, but that's okay. We can Photoshop. So I'm just gonna kind of pull it left to right. So there's that page of the ad. As we go across, it goes like that. And then you see where I smudged in the bottom corner, but we'll fix that in Photoshop. So Darren's custom cars. And now it's time to meet Darren. Well, we did meet Darren last week, right? But he didn't say anything. He just was looking at Ricky's plans and scratching his head. Um, so actually, I just remembered I need to, because Darren has tattoos and all sorts of, ear piercings and stuff. I'm going to break out last week's. So I have the reference for Darren's tattoos. Because it would kind of suck to draw him with one set one day and another set the other day. So that was from last week's show. Uh, and you can see I had some ink drops, but this one I'm going to turn into like an 8-ball tattoo. So I'm going to stick that kind of sideways on top of my laptop. And then I've got my reference. Um, so we have the proprietor of the business of that ad. Now, so here we have a bit of a mismatch because here, Darren, I think what I'm going to do is I'm not going to put the speech bubble here because I don't have it anywhere else because Darren's the only one in that frame. Just like here, there's no speech bubble on Ricky. But down here, there will be a speech bubble because they're both in the shot and you got to show that it's Darren saying that. So anyways, I don't have to worry about erasing it or whatever because again, it's non-photo blue pencil and it's going to go bye-bye when I scan in black and white. So we can proceed straight to drawing Darren. So Darren's kind of a rockabilly sort of a dude. You can tell he's got himself a big pompadour. I guess I'll start with drawing his ears. It's a similar ear piercing as his cousin Ricky has up there, but Darren has more piercings than Ricky does. A very reasonable question. Does your mama know you're gonna go to sea? No. Why would Ricky tell Mama Rat? Mama Rat's just gonna be upset by that sort of news. Darren's got a bit of a mullet going on. He's kind of got sideburns too, although don't really show in that one, but anyways. Got his whiskers. Got his flaming dice tattoo. Excuse me. Flaming something else tattoo over there. I can't even tell there. Oh, maybe it's supposed to be a flaming wrench. There's another tattoo or another drawing that shows it for sure, but anyways. Because Darren is so pale, I am gonna make the background kind of, not gonna do it on both sides, but I'm gonna kind of make it like there's a shadow being cast over here. Need a fatter nib for the line boundaries, or the panel boundaries. So it'll end up being a B1, but we'll do that in a moment. So there we go. Before I put in the frame boundaries, I am going to draw the Ricky part. As you can tell, I've got to do a little bit of tweaking on the spacing of the text, but again, that's a Photoshop fix. So, Yeah, it doesn't really get into it in this book, although the next page, which at this point, we're not getting through the next page today, so that'll be for next week's. But Darren does make a reference to, well, you kind of get the sense that he doesn't get along with Ricky's mother. Um, one of the podcasts I did a couple years ago, that was kind of made very clear that uh, Mama Rat and Darren and the rest of Darren's family, because Darren is Ricky's cousin on his father's side. Um, Anyways, Mama Rat doesn't get along with Darren, doesn't like Darren, and the feeling is mutual. I may fix that ear in Photoshop and make it smaller. Fix Darren because it doesn't really track Darren's ear size. Anyways, um, just want to make sure I've got everything in the frame. So there's Ricky's nose, and so I think this is the first time we hear the terrible mercats that Ricky's mother thinks fill the sea, and Ricky thinks are real. And we don't see Darren's tail here, but I mean, we do in that panel. But sometimes the rats have their tails down, especially if they're concerned or upset or whatever. All right, now the really big nib, because we need to split these two out into their own respective panels. I'm actually going to make Ricky's panel a little bit wider because Darren's not using all of his. The hell was that? Like pressed down on something as like it went pop, but I mean, we have a little bit of that, but I can, you know what? Not even. I think I'm just gonna leave that. Um, Later on, I might decide to take a fine marker tip and make it look like there's cracks in the wall or something like that, but we didn't get, ink we got some ink splattered down here, but we can work with that. Very weird. Anyways. Is the unpredictability of working with ink pens. Sometimes they just randomly go splat. You can see how I put a very thick line in between panels. And that one, I can even do it like that to make it more vertical. If I'm bothered by this, I can always Photoshop it out. Um, we'll use this again at the bottom because we kind of repeat the vibe, but let's carry on. So we get towards the end of the show, another 20 minutes or so, because all this is going to take. So, mercats ain't real, Ricky. Sharks are real, but they're the least of your worries. Anyways, let's draw the mer kitty. After all, these guys are rats, so they definitely don't want to deal with cats. Honestly, that looks more like a dog than a cat, but whatever. Still, it's a mermaid, so it still has like the seashell bra. Looks like a dead swan, but whatever. I'm gonna use the fatter nib to color in the no, the strikeout sign. Stuck on some dry, semi-dry ink. Let's give the cat some stripes. Makes it a little bit more cat-like, I guess. So I think some of this splatter like that, we can make it go away pretty quickly. Where it hit down here. Mostly seem to hit sort of in areas that will eventually be covered by lines anyways. And actually, I was saying earlier that that was Darren's tail, but it's not. It's his cigarette smoke. His tail is obviously drooping down because he's not happy about what he's hearing out of Ricky with this whole go into sea nonsense. Dark filter there. I want to say what this is like a flaming socket wrench or something. I know. I think there is an angle on the next page or two where we actually see it. now. almost done. I think I'm just gonna draw like a little vein coming out in Ricky's forehead. I might make a note saying tweak that vein. Now, put in the last of our really big fat lines between these borders. Actually, yeah, let me think about that. I should probably do the lettering first just to be sure that I don't smudge. Most of the lettering I did with pigment pen liners. When I did the, actually before I did the blue underdrawing, I arranged the panels and did the lettering first and then drew around the lettering. But some areas where I wanted it really bold, like here, I left it with the intention of using thicker nib pens like this. Actually, I'll probably remove the dots because one of them's going to disappear when I put in the boundary line. Which is probably why I didn't draw in dots to begin with. Yeah, see, I lost one of the three dots, so it's best to kind of. It looks weird to just have two, so we will uh, remove the dots. All right. Last block or last panel of the evening. I realize this that pompadour kind of makes it look like he's wearing a toupee, but this is his real hair. You know, it's in a mullet, but he's got the rockabilly thing going up top and like the 80s metalhead thing going in the back. There. He's got a pinup bimbo tattoo. There we have it. So let's have another quick look at what we got done tonight. This is the third page, where we continue actually from where we left off last week with Ricky and his cousin Darren discussing Ricky's submarine plans. But of course, we have the ongoing story with the intrusive ads. So we did have a little interruption at the beginning of the show by a two-page ad, which is actually for Darren's business. So, Darren's Custom Cars, every chick loves a custom, as featured in Ratmobile magazine. FYI, it'll be ready when it's effing ready. Custom mods and hot rods. Um, so there's an ad for Darren's business, which is interrupting the story because, your phone or whatever knows when you're out of business, right? Even though they say they don't track you. So Ricky's phone or comic book or whatever obviously knows that he is at Darren's Custom Cars and is serving him up an ad to try and get him to buy something. So his own cousin is kind of part of the problem, I guess. But anyways, then we have Darren discussing the submarine plans. And I'll show you again from last week. That's what we drew last week. This will be inverted to look like blueprints. So, Darren, you could already tell last week, was looking kind of skeptical. Wants to know if Ricky's mama knows Ricky's going to go to sea. Actually, I'm just seeing. I'm going to do it with a pen rather than the dip pen, but his eyebrow's just a wee bit short there. And Darren's explaining sharks ain't real. Anyways, Ricky wants to know if Darren can build it. Well, Darren can build anything. So Ricky seems to have his hopes up, and that seems like a good cliffhanger to leave us on. So next Friday, we will continue the conversation between Darren and Ricky and carry on with the story. So thank you all for watching. The replay of this video or this stream will be up tomorrow afternoon because I'll let YouTube do its processing stuff before I make it public again. But we've got our regular streaming schedule next week, except I won't be streaming on Wednesday night, but otherwise 6:30 p.m. Pacific for a couple hours or so, working on various projects, and Ricky will be on Friday again. So thank you for watching. Hope you've enjoyed it, and bye for now. We'll see you again real soon. Bye, guys. Y'all go discuss those submarine plans. Have a great weekend, everyone.